The male lead had a face identical to mine, but I was the heir to a billionaire fortune while he was just a D-list actor. To prove he was my equal, he decided to seduce my fiancée, planning to stir up trouble on my wedding day. But before they could make their move, I preemptively announced that the wedding was off. The moment the words, "the wedding is cancelled," left my lips, the entire hall erupted. What's happening? Weren't he and Miss Davenport supposed to be childhood sweethearts? I heard they were deeply in love. The Davenports really lost out on all fronts this time. Amidst the murmurs and jeers, Amelia Davenport stormed onto the stage, her face dark with anger, and snapped, "Ethan, do you have any idea what day this is? Have you lost your mind?" The crowd below gasped in shock. Look at that attitude. No wonder he's dumping her. He's the Vance heir, for God's sake. Does Amelia think she's yelling at one of her maids? Mr. Vance Sr.'s expression turned thunderous. How dare the Davenport girl act so brazenly right in front of him? He could only imagine what she was like in private. Amelia never wanted to marry me. She was only doing it because of the pressure from her grandfather. Yet, when I announced the cancellation, her immediate reaction was to object. Amelia quickly rationalized it to herself. Her first love was Julian Croft. This was just a matter of pride. After all her years of careful planning, how could Ethan just call it off on a whim? Today was the day of the great Vance Davenport merger. With the groom backing out on the wedding day, she knew that by tomorrow, she'd be the laughingstock of all of New York City. A sharp glint appeared in Amelia's eyes. No, this wedding could not be cancelled. Perhaps because she was so used to ordering me around. Even now, Amelia's tone was imperious. Ethan, can you stop this childish tantrum? Today is about our families. Whatever issues you have, we can discuss them after the ceremony is finished. Before I could say a word, Mr. Vance Sr. declared in a voice that carried, "This wedding is over." After he spoke, he patted my back reassuringly, then turned to Amelia, his gaze becoming as sharp as a blade. Amelia was momentarily intimidated by his presence. But then she remembered she wasn't the one who had suddenly called everything off. She was supposed to be the victim here. Shaking off her initial shock, she took the moral high ground, addressing Mr. Vance Sr. as an equal. "Mr. Vance, Ethan is throwing a fit about canceling the wedding. Surely on a day as important as this, you can't just let him do whatever he wants." Her tone clearly implied, "You need to get your grandson under control." Mr. Vance Sr. shot her a look, a chilling frostiness in his weathered eyes. He spoke with immense authority. "My grandson and heir to the Vance name has every right to be willful. He can do as he pleases." In an instant, the entire ballroom fell into a dead silence. Though the old man hadn't moved a muscle, the crowd could almost hear the sound of a slap echoing across Amelia's face. Amelia had lived a charmed life and had never been so publicly humiliated. She couldn't stop herself from demanding, "Mr. Vance, are you declaring war on the Davenport family?" The moment she finished speaking, the sharp crack of a real slap filled the air. Amelia's head snapped to the side. The person who had hit her was her own grandfather. Mr. Davenport Sr. Amelia clutched her cheek in disbelief. "Grandfather!" Mr. Davenport Sr., so furious his mustache trembled, slammed his hand on the table. "You have the nerve to call me grandfather? Apologize to Mr. Vance this instant." Humiliated, tears streamed down Amelia's face. She turned and fled from the ballroom. This shocking turn of events left the guests stunned. Mr. Davenport Sr.'s face was as black as thunder, and the ballroom erupted into chaos. "So, is the wedding on or off? The bride just ran out." "What wedding? The Vance heir wanted to call it off anyway. This works out perfectly for him. So many women were heartbroken when he got engaged. I guess he's back on the market." I stepped up to the microphone to address the crowd. "Thank you all for coming. I regret to inform you that my engagement to Amelia Davenport is officially over. From this day forward, we will go our separate ways." With that, I walked away, bringing the curtain down on what was supposed to be the wedding of the century. After the chaos died down, my grandfather saw that I was calm and smiled, relieved. "Ethan, what made you suddenly decide to call things off with that Davenport girl?" My expression was neutral. "I found out she was seeing someone else. Right before the wedding, she was on a call saying she was only marrying me for the Vance fortune. Once she had your trust, the Davenports planned to take over our company and then get rid of me." This was a half-truth. I hadn't actually overheard the call, but I knew from the past that this was exactly what she would do. My grandfather slammed his fist on the table and raged. "What? That Davenport girl actually said that?" I nodded firmly. "Every word is true. I could have overlooked the cheating, but but I will not tolerate anyone scheming against the Vance family. My grandfather suppressed his fury. Don't worry, Ethan. I will make Amelia Davenport pay for this. By the end of his sentence, his voice was laced with a chilling intent. But I shook my head. Grandfather, just dealing with Amelia won't solve the real problem. It's a temporary fix. The truth is, I want to join the Vance Corporation. My grandfather was taken aback. Ethan, why the sudden change of heart about the business? His reaction was understandable. The original Ethan had been obsessed with painting his whole life, even gaining some recognition in the art world. Although my grandfather had wanted to groom me as his successor, he saw my passion lay elsewhere and let me follow my dreams. Ethan, painting is what you love. All I've ever wanted is for you to do what makes you happy. A warmth spread through my chest. The old man truly gave his all for his grandson, but he couldn't protect me forever. If he could have, the original Ethan wouldn't have met such a tragic end. Grandfather, you won't be around forever. I've made up my mind. I'm going to take over the company. My grandfather nodded, a look of gratification on his face. And the first order of business upon taking over was to deal with my rival, Julian Croft. Elsewhere, Julian Croft suddenly shivered, feeling as if someone was watching him from the shadows. He quickly shook off the feeling of unease. Turning, his eyes lit up with surprise at the woman standing before him. Amelia, what are you doing here? Julian had been in his apartment, drinking away his sorrows, when Amelia suddenly showed up. Their encounter moved from the doorway to the bedroom, lasting until nightfall. Afterwards, Julian asked cautiously, "Isn't today supposed to be your wedding to Ethan? You being here?" Amelia cut him off before he could finish. "Don't talk about him. We called it off." Julian's eyes brightened. "Really? You're not going to marry him?" A flicker of unease crossed Amelia's mind, but she quickly suppressed it with years of resentment. "I'm the one who ended it." After their night together, Julian arrived at Starlight Entertainment the next day, looking refreshed and confident. At Starlight Entertainment, everyone knew Julian had a mysterious and wealthy sponsor. He was only a B-list actor, yet he had a company-provided luxury apartment and a private car. It was a level of treatment that even A-listers envied. A few up-and-coming actors greeted him respectfully. "Morning, Julian." Julian smiled and nodded back. He was in such a good mood today that he didn't even bother with his usual modest act. Amelia had finally promised not to marry that Vance heir. As soon as he stepped out of the elevator, he ran into his agent, Linda. "Morning, Linda." Julian offered a gentle smile. Linda's expression was grave. "Starlight has a new CEO, appointed from the top. There's going to be a major shakeup. I have a meeting on the 33rd floor." Julian stepped aside, unconcerned. With Amelia backing him, it didn't matter who the new CEO was. He was untouchable. Then, Linda gave him a mysterious smile. "By the way, there are a few scripts for leading roles in the break room. You're about to hit the big time." Julian's eyes widened, and he grabbed Linda's arm excitedly. "Linda, are you serious?" Linda nodded with a knowing smile. Julian sprinted back to the break room, his hands fumbling as he searched for the scripts. He was finally going to be a leading man. A future of fame and fortune was just within his grasp. In the 33rd floor boardroom of the Starlight Tower, department heads whispered amongst themselves, speculating about the new CEO sent down from corporate. A new king means a new court, and everyone was worried about their job security. At 10 o'clock sharp, the heavy boardroom doors swung open, and I strode in, commanding the room. The executives were secretly shocked. The new CEO was so young. More than a few of them wore expressions of disdain. My eyes scanned the room as I spoke calmly. "I'm Ethan Vance." Those three simple words made the color drain from every face in the room. This was the heir to the entire corporation. The same executives who had been sneering moments ago were now beaming. "Mr. Vance, a pleasure." I crossed one leg over the other. "In this building, you will call me Mr. Vance." They all replied in unison, "Understood, Mr. Vance." I nodded, satisfied. Good. Taking over Starlight Entertainment was going more smoothly than I'd expected. The heir card was certainly effective. "Linda." Hearing her name, Linda felt a knot in her stomach. "Yes, Mr. Vance? What can I do for you?" I asked nonchalantly. "You have an actor on your roster named Julian Croft, correct?" Linda answered cautiously. "Yes, he's 21, has played supporting roles in a few major productions, and is currently one of our B-list actors." Hearing this, a small smile played on my lips as I glanced at Linda. What a coincidence. He has the same last name as my mother's side of the family. I had already done my research. Linda wasn't Julian's original agent. Amelia had pulled strings behind the scenes to make the switch. Now, it was time to put things back in their proper place. Linda couldn't read my intentions, so she offered a safe assessment. Julian has decent market value and no negative press at the moment. My smile vanished. That actor with a name that reminds me of my own, I don't like him. You know what to do. The smile froze on Linda's face. Consider it done, Mr. Vance. On the 17th floor, Julian was engrossed in reading a script. Linda had picked out some great projects for him. Fantasy epics, modern dramas, high school romances, everything was there. Julian's favorite was the fantasy script. It told the story of a small-town boy who stumbles into a world of magic, becoming entangled in a web of love and conflict with his beautiful mentor, a demon queen and an elven princess. He dreamed of playing the lead, becoming an overnight sensation, an A-list star with endless movie deals and endorsement contracts. When Linda walked in, Julian greeted her with a radiant smile. Linda, you're back. So who's the new CEO? I've been looking at the scripts, and Crown of Embers looks amazing. Linda cut him off, her face expressionless. Crown of Embers isn't for you. Julian's smile froze. A flicker of disappointment crossed his face, but he quickly recovered. Okay, well, the high school drama, summer semester, looks good too. Linda cut him off again. That's not for you either. Julian stared, his eyes wide. Linda, are you joking? Linda sneered. Do I look like I'm joking? As of today, all of your projects are being reassigned to Maya-chan. This is an order, not a negotiation. Julian's voice trembled. What? You're giving everything to Maya-chan? Why? Linda tossed back coldly. You should think long and hard about who you've pissed off recently. The color drained from Julian's face. Could it be? Meanwhile, in the 33rd floor CEO's office, I was lazily spinning in my chair when a voice echoed in my mind. Redeem Chloe Sterling. A wicked grin spread across my face. Nice name. You want me to change her fate? Interesting. Let's see just how tragic Chloe's story is this time around. In this timeline, Chloe Sterling was cast as the classic evil supporting character. As a top celebrity, she had a brilliant career ahead of her, but she became a target simply because the male lead, Julian, had a crush on her. Because Amelia was obsessed with Julian, Chloe found herself inexplicably in the crossfire. Under pressure from the Davenport Corporation, Chloe was quickly buried in scandals, losing all her savings and accumulating massive debt. To make matters worse, her critically ill mother, not wanting to be a burden, took herself off life support and died. Devastated by one blow after another, Chloe fell into a deep depression and ultimately took her own life. Meanwhile, Chloe Sterling pulled the brim of her black baseball cap down, stepping out of the Starlight Entertainment building. Her agent had just implied that a wealthy businessman had his eye on her. If she was willing to play the game, she could have her career back. The casting couch was a grim reality of the industry. Her agent tried to coax her, but Chloe walked away without a second glance. Behind her, her agent's voice, thick with frustration and anger, yelled, "Stop acting so pure. After the Davenports are done with you, you'll come crawling back to me." The young woman pressed her pale lips together, clutching a medical bill as she hurried toward the hospital. At the hospital, Chloe pushed open the door to the room. The woman on the bed was pale, but you could still see the beauty she possessed in her youth. "Chloe, you're here." Chloe rushed to her side. "Mom, don't get up. Let me help you." Her mother asked, "Isn't work busy? How do you have time to visit me every day?" Chloe answered vaguely, "Things have calmed down." She didn't want her mother to know about her troubles. They talked for a while until her mother drifted off to sleep. Chloe then quietly slipped out of the room. Just as the door clicked shut, her phone buzzed. A message on a gig finder app popped up. Art model needed. $1,000 an hour. Seeing the words $1,000 an hour, Chloe, who desperately needed the money, was tempted. Half an hour later, Chloe stood at the gates of the Inkwell estate, a private, gated community. The pressure was immense. Even at the height of her career, she could never have afforded a home here. The moment she pressed the doorbell, she had the urge to turn and run. After being canceled online, blacklisted by the industry, and deliberately shut out of every job, she had learned to be cautious. After all, with her looks, plenty of men had tried to take advantage of her. The mansion's gate swung open slowly. To her surprise, it wasn't some lecherous old tycoon who answered, but a young woman. Chloe breathed a silent sigh of relief. "Hello, I'm Chloe Sterling. I'm here about the art model position." The young woman's eyes widened as she pointed. "Wait, aren't you that famous actress?" "I used to be." Chloe's voice was even. "Can we begin now?" The woman quickly shook her head. "Oh, it's not me who hired you. It's my employer. Please, come in." Chloe followed the maid, whose name was Lucy, into the mansion. Lucy stopped in front of a studio on the second floor. My employer said you should go in alone. Lucy lowered her voice. And remember, whatever he asks you to do, just do it. Don't ask questions. Chloe gave a slight nod. Once Lucy had left, she stepped into the art studio. As she did, a languid voice drifted from within. Take off your clothes. Color instantly flooded the young woman's cheeks. What? Chloe took a flustered step back. I'm here to be a model, not to do anything else. She turned to leave. A soft chuckle came from behind the easel. Chloe stopped. What's so funny? She knew she should leave right then, but something about that laugh held her captive. The man's lazy voice drifted from behind the easel again. I think you've misunderstood. I asked you to take off your clothes because I twirled a paintbrush between my fingers. Miss Sterling, do you remember why you're here? The young woman bit her lip. To be a life model. Exactly. I set down my brush, my voice laced with a subtle, teasing quality. And I intend to paint your body. Chloe stood frozen, the tips of her ears turning pink. Her mind screamed at her to leave, but her feet felt like they were nailed to the floor. Another soft laugh came from behind the easel. Good. From now on, we'll do things my way. My voice suddenly became firm. No questions. Understood. Blushing, she nodded. I spoke again. Turn around. She obediently turned her back to me. I began to walk toward her, my footsteps growing louder. Chloe knew her employer was a man, but she hadn't expected someone so elegant and handsome. I circled her, studying her from every angle. When I came to stand in front of her again, she finally broke the silence. What are you looking at? I smirked. Inspecting the merchandise. I have to see if you meet the qualifications. I suddenly stepped closer. Chloe's breath hitched. His face was just inches from hers, making her heart pound and her cheeks burn. I watched her innocent reaction with amusement. This version of the villainess was surprisingly pure. Interesting. You seem a little nervous, Angel. Chloe flinched slightly when she heard him call her that. Since the online hate campaigns and being blacklisted by the studio, it had been a long time since anyone had spoken to her so kindly. I leaned close to her ear, my voice a teasing whisper. Is something wrong, Angel? The tips of Chloe's ears turned crimson. I'm not nervous. It's just a little warm in here. I gently pinched her burning earlobe. But Angel, your ears are bright red. Chloe grabbed my hand. Don't just touch my ears. I grinned. I'm not just touching them. I'm touching them very deliberately. Chloe was speechless. I waved a hand dismissively. All right, I'll stop teasing you. Now, take off your clothes. The air hung still for a few seconds. Chloe knew I only wanted to paint, but the blunt command still made her ears burn. She whispered shyly, could you please turn around first? I raised an eyebrow. Are you shy, Angel? No. Chloe's voice was soft. I'm just not used to someone watching me undress. I chuckled. And you say you're not shy. If you're this flustered just from a few glances, what will you do when I'm painting you? I'll have to stare at you for hours. Maybe I should help you, just so you can get used to it. Chloe quickly refused. That won't be necessary. I burst out laughing. She still couldn't bring herself to be completely undressed in front of a man. I glanced at the clock. It's 2:45 p.m. You said we agreed on $1,000 an hour. I nodded. Correct. But are you planning on letting me paint you just standing there like that? Her expression clearly said, what else would I do? That won't work at all. For a photo shoot, a photographer would ask you to pose, to smile for the camera. You can't expect me to paint you while you're standing there like a statue. Chloe thought for a moment, then looked at me. What's the theme of the painting? I gave her a wicked smile. Temptation and desire. At those words, Chloe's expression froze. Temptation and desire? Even for a former star who had never been camera shy, being asked to embody those two words left her feeling awkward. Her old studio had branded her as a cool, aloof idol, a reserved and untouchable beauty that matched her real personality. Hearing my request, she was completely flustered, even stumbling over her words. Seeing her distress, I waved my hand. Forget it. You don't have to undress or pose. I'll just paint you as you are. With that, I sat back down at my easel, picked up a brush, and began to work on the canvas. My little companion, Fifi, who had been silent until now, finally piped up, her voice hesitant. Master, was it really okay to treat the prime being like that? I immediately corrected her. Not the prime being, just one of her fragments. Fifi fluttered her wings. I suppose that's true, but Master, it's still her. Aren't you afraid she'll make you pay for this later? What's there to be afraid of? I raised an eyebrow. Whether she lets me tease her is a measure of her grace. Whether my teasing works is a measure of my skill. Besides, aren't these powerful beings supposed to be all-forgiving and compassionate? I'm just flirting a little. It's not like I'm committing some unforgivable sin. Master, that just flirting line makes you sound like a total player. While I was having fun teasing a fragment of a cosmic entity, Julian Croft was having a much worse time. Julian's mood was bleak. His agent, Linda, blamed him for offending someone important. All of his projects had been cancelled, and the resources meant for him were now being funneled to a newcomer, Maya Chun. It was clear the studio was planning to promote her and shelve him indefinitely. Although Julian had gotten into acting because he was a fan himself, once he'd tasted the intoxicating feeling of the spotlight and public adoration, who would willingly give that up to become an ordinary person again? Julian certainly wasn't. Being a star was amazing. Fans adored you wherever you went. A single commercial or a TV role could net you millions. Even if he did something completely mundane, a legion of fans would instantly praise him for it. Julian reveled in the feeling of being a star. It fed his vanity like nothing else. Now that Linda was threatening to bench him, Julian, terrified of losing the life he'd built, began to panic. The first person he thought to call for help was Amelia. But how could he, an actor who had built his entire brand on being a tough, self-reliant, scrappy underdog, run to Amelia the second he was in trouble? That would make him no different from some kept boy toy. But Amelia could see the unhappiness written all over his face. She was in love with him, so she didn't mind putting in the effort to cheer him up. She booked a private room at an expensive restaurant, ordered a candlelit dinner, and over a glass of wine, all she had to do was ask, "What's wrong?" before Julian poured out the whole story of how Linda had treated him at the studio. Linda said I offended someone important, that the order to blacklist me came from the very top. But Amelia, you know me, I get along with everyone. Who could I have possibly offended? Being an actor is my dream. Is it all about to be ruined? His words subtly deflected any blame, as if he were hinting at something else. Amelia didn't disappoint him. She understood his implication perfectly and responded at once. Julian, you're so kind and innocent. You couldn't possibly offend anyone. It must have been Ethan. Starlight Entertainment is a Vance company. He must have found out about you, and that's why she almost said called off the wedding, but caught herself just in time. If Julian found out that she had been dumped by the man she loathed most, she would be a laughingstock. Amelia paused, glossing over the details of the wedding day. The memory of me calling things off filled her with a fresh wave of resentment. Julian, don't worry. I will make Ethan answer for this. Julian, of course, believed her. With her promise, his worries vanished. After their romantic dinner, Amelia called the waiter over and handed him a black card to pay the bill. A few moments later, the waiter returned. I'm sorry, miss, but this card has been frozen. Do you have another form of payment? Amelia's face fell. Her card was frozen? She quickly realized it must have been her grandfather's doing. He was punishing her financially for running out on the wedding. She didn't have to guess. Her other cards were surely frozen as well. It was humiliating. She had booked a private dinner at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, only to be unable to pay the bill. It was the most embarrassing moment of her life, and it had happened right in front of the man she loved. In the end, Julian, ever the gentleman, took out his own card and settled the bill. Julian knew how proud Amelia was. Afraid of upsetting her, he quickly said in a gentle voice, Amelia, this is the first time I've ever gotten to pay for our dinner. Feels really nice. You should let me do it more often, okay? He was smart enough not to ask why her card was frozen, skillfully diffusing the awkwardness of the situation. Sure enough, his words seemed to soothe her, and the color returned to her face. Back at Julian's apartment, Amelia called her grandfather, her first words an accusation. Grandfather, why did you freeze my accounts? Mr. Davenport Sr. let out a cold laugh. After several days of silence, she finally called, but only to demand why he had cut her off. What a wonderful granddaughter she was. He used her full name, his voice slow and deliberate. Amelia, you know exactly why your accounts are frozen. Amelia hesitated, then gripped her phone tighter, her voice rising in anger. I told you I don't love Ethan. You're the one who forced me into this marriage. Her grandfather laughed, a humorless sound. Marrying the Vance heir was a dream for countless women in New York, yet his foolish granddaughter threw it all away for a mere actor. So who do you prefer? That actor? Amelia, don't you forget who you are. Without the Davenport name, you are nothing. I'm giving you 3 days to think this over. Either you go back to Ethan, apologize, and beg him to take you back, or I will seize every asset registered in your name. Financial control was always the patriarch's favorite tool. But Amelia, a spoiled heiress who had never known a day of hardship, replied in a tone colder than his own, "Do whatever you want." Then she hung up. Furious, Mr. Davenport Sr. nearly choked on his rage. He immediately ordered his assistants to begin seizing all of Amelia's assets. And just like that, Amelia became a disowned heiress, cut off from her family and fortune. Far from being put off, Julian was deeply moved. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Amelia, I heard everything. You did all of this for me. From now on, please, let me take care of you." Amelia was still seething, feeling cornered by her grandfather, her heart filled with a resentment she couldn't express. If Julian had tried to convince her to go back and apologize, she wouldn't have been grateful. She would have lashed out at him instead. But his words made her feel understood. And in that moment, Julian, who promised to take care of her, seemed incredibly charming. "Julian, I knew I made the right choice with you." And so Amelia, the disowned heiress, moved into Julian's small apartment. For someone used to living in mansions, squeezing into a tiny apartment was a novel, if not entirely pleasant, experience. After several days lost in each other's company, Julian finally remembered his career. Amelia decided to accompany him to Starlight Entertainment, planning to stand up for him. "Julian, I'm coming with you. I'd like to see that agent of yours try to bully you with me there." The moment they arrived at Starlight, Amelia took Julian's hand, radiating the unmistakable aura of a powerful heiress. She fixed Linda with an icy stare. "So you're the one who's been bullying my Julian, giving his roles to others, and trying to ruin his career?" Linda was shocked and furious. She shot a look at Julian. Amelia's face had been in the business section of the Times. Who didn't know the fiancé of the Vance heir? Linda had always known Julian had a sponsor, but she never imagined it was Amelia Davenport. No wonder Ethan Vance was after him. This idiot Julian was going to get her fired. He'd sleep with anyone. With Amelia by his side, Julian wasn't afraid of Linda. He leaned against Amelia. "Amelia, Linda has actually been very good to me. She's just following orders. Don't blame her." Linda spoke up as well. "Miss Davenport, it's not a matter of bullying. This was an internal company decision." "An internal decision?" Amelia smirked coldly. "Fine. Get your CEO, Mr. Harrison, in here." Mr. Harrison was the former CEO of Starlight. Clearly, Amelia hadn't heard the news. She expected Linda to look terrified at the mention of his name. Instead, Linda replied without blinking, "I'm sorry, Miss Davenport, but Mr. Harrison has been dismissed." Amelia frowned, a vague sense of unease creeping in, a feeling that things were slipping from her control. "Dismissed?" Linda replied evenly, "That's correct. The new CEO of Starlight Entertainment is Mr. Vance." "Mr. Vance?" Amelia never imagined that the Mr. Vance Linda was referring to was me. The original Ethan was a quiet, melancholic artist. It was hard to reconcile the image of Ethan Vance, the heir, with Mr. Vance, the CEO. A glint appeared in Linda's eye. She glanced at Amelia and Julian, wrapped around each other, and a desire for revenge sparked within her. Would Miss Davenport like to meet with Mr. Vance? Amelia was here to defend her lover. She couldn't just leave with nothing to show for it. That would be a loss of face. So what if Starlight had a new CEO? The Davenports and the Vances were family friends. All she had to do was state her name, and this new CEO would have to show her some respect. Amelia lifted her chin, her expression arrogant, and ordered Linda, "Of course I want to see him. You go get this Mr. Vance down here to see me. Now." A strange smile played on Linda's lips. "Of course, Miss Davenport. Please wait a moment while I inform Mr. Vance." Then, right in front of Amelia, she picked up the phone and dialed the extension for the CEO's office. I had known from the moment Amelia and Julian set foot in the building. So, when Linda's call came through, I wasn't surprised. Hearing what Linda said, however, made me laugh. I spoke softly into the receiver. "That's hilarious. Who the hell does Amelia Davenport think she is, that I should go down to see her?" I leaned back in my chair, the picture of nonchalance. Either Amelia can haul herself up to the 33rd floor, or you can have security throw them out of the building. Receiving her orders, the corners of Linda's mouth turned up. She replied respectfully, "Yes, Mr. Vance." Julian was only acting so arrogant because he had Amelia backing him. At the end of the day, it was the Vance Corporation that signed his paychecks. What right did Amelia have to throw her weight around here? It was only because Ethan had been in love with her. When Ethan loved Amelia, she was the future lady of the Vance Empire, and everyone at Starlight had to treat her with respect. But now that he didn't, who was she? Now that Linda knew my stance, She knew exactly what to do. She turned to relay my message to Amelia, a barely concealed sneer on her face. Miss Davenport, Mr. Vance says he's very busy and can't come down. If you wish to see him, you'll have to go up to his office on the 33rd floor. After all, she was still a Davenport. Even if she wasn't going to be Mrs. Vance, she was still far above a simple agent on the social ladder. So Linda softened my words, trying to save Amelia a little face. If she had repeated my exact words, telling her to haul herself up here, Amelia might have had an aneurysm. Even with Linda's softened delivery, Amelia was so incensed that the CEO wouldn't come down to see her, but instead summoned her to the 33rd floor, that she let out a bitter laugh. She laughed, her voice dripping with anger. Did you not tell him who I am? That's right. She still thought this Mr. Vance was someone else entirely. Linda gave her a look that clearly said, "Are you deaf?" and reminded her, "Miss Davenport, I announced your name when I called him. Did you not hear me?" Amelia's cheeks burned. Of course she had heard. The fact that he knew who she was and still dismissed her so casually only fueled her rage. Amelia was not used to being ignored. She sneered, "Fine, I'd like to see just who this Mr. Vance thinks he is." When Amelia, with Julian in tow, arrived on the 33rd floor and pushed open the door to the CEO's office, she froze the moment she saw me sitting inside. I looked at her and smiled. "What's this? Don't you know how to knock? Or is this just a sample of your Davenport manners?" Snapping out of her shock, Amelia frowned. "Ethan, don't you dare lay a hand on Julian." She was so focused on me that she didn't notice Julian freeze at the sound of my name, his eyes wide with shock. He knew Amelia had a fiancé she'd known since childhood, but he never imagined it was the handsome CEO standing before him. The awkwardness of the situation was crushing him. I didn't even bother looking at him, replying to Amelia with a smile. "Miss Davenport, what makes you think I'm bullying your little boy toy?" Amelia stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief. The Ethan who had always been so devoted to her was actually speaking to her like this. She was shocked and humiliated. "Ethan, you?" The words caught in her throat, her anger leaving her speechless. I looked at her mockingly. "Me what?" Seeing his chance, Julian stepped in. "Mr. Vance, how can you treat Amelia like that?" Before he could finish his sentence, I shot him a look. "Since when do you have the right to tell me what to do?" Julian swallowed hard, a sudden wave of fear washing over him. But with Amelia beside him, he figured I wouldn't dare to do anything. Besides, he had to look good in front of Amelia. So Julian forced himself to continue. "Mr. Vance, Amelia is a Davenport, the president of the Davenport Corporation. She's a lady. You can't just disrespect her and insult her like this. It's wrong." I turned to Julian and smiled. "Julian, that's your job. You're the one who needs to flatter and please this woman. I'm different. I can say whatever I want to Amelia, and what can she do about it? That's the difference between you and me." Julian didn't dare to argue. He knew I could ruin him with a single phone call. Seeing her precious boy toy get shut down while defending her, Amelia couldn't stay silent. She glared at me. "Ethan, what are you so smug about? You're nothing without your family name. I came here today to ask you why you're doing this to Julian." Seeing his opening, Julian quickly added, "Mr. Vance, Linda told me you've canceled all my projects. I may not have been born with a silver spoon like you, but even people without money have their pride. If you keep pushing me, when I have nothing left to lose, I'll have no choice but to take you down with me." I glanced at him. "Is that a threat?" Julian pressed on. "The Vance family may be powerful in New York, but you don't control everything, do you?" He looked me straight in the eye as he spoke, as if to remind me that he was a celebrity with a large fan base. If I pushed him too far, he would drag me through the mud with him. I let out a contemptuous laugh. "You're wrong. In New York, the Vance family can do whatever it wants. And let me remind you of something. Even though I'm done with Amelia, before today, she was my fiancée. That makes you nothing more than her boy toy. What do you think your precious fans would do if they found out their idol was a kept man?" At my words, Julian's pupils contracted. Seeing his reaction, Amelia jumped to his defense. "Ethan, that's enough. I never loved you, and I never considered you my fiancé. You have no right to call him a homewrecker." She was protecting him. In the past, words like that would have crushed the old Ethan. A part of her still believed they would. I smiled. "What a coincidence. I don't want to acknowledge it either. But the fact is, the Davenports have profited handsomely from their association with my family over the years. Your denial doesn't matter. To the rest of the world, you're just the woman the Vances cast aside." The moment she heard the words Vance woman, her mind went blank, consumed by rage. Seeing her reaction, I smirked and continued, I am the CEO of this company, and Julian Croft is one of my employees. You know better than anyone how he got his start in this industry. I have no idea where you get the audacity to come in here and make demands. I'm a very busy man. If that's all, you can get out. With that, I pressed the intercom and had my secretary show the two unwelcome guests out. What could they do? They had no choice but to leave. Julian looked lost and dejected. Amelia, I have a 10-year contract with Starlight. Ethan holds my entire career in his hands. He's doing this because he hates me for being with you. What am I going to do? His words gave Amelia pause. Was it really love turned to hate? A sudden realization dawned on her, and with it, a strange sense of confidence. There can be no hate without love. Ethan must still be in love with her. She knew it. How could someone's feelings change so fast? This thought renewed her confidence. She took Julian's hand. Julian, don't worry. I'll handle this. The Fiancée may be powerful, but the Davenports are not to be underestimated. We'll just break your contract. I'll pay the termination fee. The Davenport Corporation has its own media division. It's not as big as Starlight, but if you sign with us, I'll make sure you're treated well. Besides, Ethan is just acting out because he's a spoiled brat. I doubt his grandfather even knows what he's doing. If Mr. Vance Sr. knew, he would never let Ethan get away with this. With that, she immediately called my grandfather. Mr. Vance, Ethan knows nothing about running a company. He's running Starlight into the ground, playing favorites and ruining the careers of talented actors on a whim. A promising young artist is having his future destroyed. Do you really think that's acceptable? My grandfather immediately let out a cold laugh. It's not your place to tell me how to handle my grandson, and this promising young artist wouldn't happen to be that boy toy of yours, Julian Croft, would he? After our previous conversation, my grandfather had had Amelia investigated and knew all about Julian. Amelia didn't know how to respond. She pressed on, Mr. Vance, I'm not being selfish. I'm just worried that Ethan is going to bankrupt Starlight Entertainment. It's one of your family's most profitable assets. I'm only trying to help. My grandfather sneered. We don't need your help. As long as Ethan is happy, I don't care if he runs Starlight into the ground. It's a toy for him to play with. The Vance family can afford the loss. With that, he hung up on her and immediately dialed another number, tearing into Mr. Davenport Sr. Davenport, get your granddaughter under control. She has the nerve to call me, defending her boy toy and criticizing my Ethan. I'm telling you, my patience is wearing thin. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And if the granddaughter was out of control, it was the grandfather's fault. The moment Mr. Davenport Sr. answered the phone, he was met with a tirade from my grandfather, and his face grew dark. My grandfather's attack was relentless, confident, and justified. Mr. Davenport Sr. couldn't get a word in edgewise. In that moment, he was being lectured like a schoolboy. Having been on the receiving end of my grandfather's wrath, Mr. Davenport Sr. naturally took his frustration out on the one who had caused it, Amelia. Amelia, you foolish girl, always causing trouble. Have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea who Ethan is? Harrison Vance dotes on that boy, and you had the audacity to complain to him directly. Are you reckless? Or just plain stupid? This time, her grandfather was truly livid. After chewing her out, he hung up and then proceeded to publicly announce that he was cutting Amelia off completely. It was partly to appease my grandfather, and partly because Amelia had truly and utterly disappointed him. As for Amelia, she found that her influence within the Davenport Corporation had vanished. All the promises she had made to Julian were now just empty words. Since I had decided to make this pair pay for what they did to the original Ethan, I had no intention of stopping now. My status as the Vance heir was a powerful weapon. I didn't even have to get my own hands dirty. Once I made my dislike for Julian known, plenty of people were eager to curry favor by making his life a living hell. Every day, Julian would come home and complain to Amelia, begging her to do something, but what could she do? To add insult to injury, the luxury apartment Julian was living in was company property. I made a suggestion at the right time, and the company took it back. Julian and the now penniless Amelia were forced to move out. The company car he had been given was also repossessed. I was dismantling their lives piece by piece. Now, Amelia was completely dependent on her struggling actor boyfriend. She was lost. Was this really the life she had chosen? While Julian and Amelia were going through hell, I was thriving. Chloe arrived at the Inkwell estate on time every day. I would paint, admiring her beauty, occasionally teasing her just enough to make her blush before pulling back. And when Fifi gave me real-time updates on Julian and Amelia's miserable lives, I couldn't help but smile. I decided to go out for a drink to celebrate. The Velvet Rope was one of New York's most exclusive clubs, a place of neon lights and hedonism. And Chloe Sterling, once a top star, was now singing on its stage. Kyle Preston, heir to the Preston fortune, had always been one of Chloe's biggest fans. Back when she was famous, he would send flowers to her concerts and lavish her with expensive gifts, all in the hope of catching her eye. But back then, she was a star far out of his reach. Now that star had fallen, landing in this dark, chaotic world, seemingly within his grasp. Kyle didn't care about the online rumors. He had tracked her down to the Velvet Rope, where she now sang for a living. Chloe had chosen the Velvet Rope because its owners were powerful enough to be immune to the Davenports' influence. It was one of the few places Amelia couldn't touch her. I entered the club, found a booth, and watched Chloe on stage. Her expressive eyes and captivating performance drew the attention of many men in the room. They held their drinks, ready to make their move, but before they could get close, several men in black suits and sunglasses materialized, blocking their path. Once the would-be suitors had retreated, the men in black melted back into the shadows as if they had never been there. I acted as if I hadn't noticed a thing, casually swirling the drink in my glass and taking an occasional sip. Chloe only performed at the Velvet Rope on Friday nights. When her set was over, she left the stage. As soon as she stepped off, she was approached by Kyle Preston's men and escorted to his table. "So, have you thought about my offer to be my girlfriend?" Kyle had asked her out more than once, but Chloe had always turned him down. But Kyle Preston was not used to being told no. After being rejected so many times, his patience was wearing thin. Before, when she was a star, he had been just another fan chasing her light. Back then, her aloofness had seemed elegant and refined. But now she was a fallen star. The fact that he was still interested in her, that he was still willing to make her his girlfriend, should have been a gift. Her lack of gratitude infuriated him. The last time they had spoken, he had left her with a thinly veiled threat, telling her to think carefully about his offer. In the original story, it was this rejection that sent Kyle over the edge. In a rage, he stormed into the hospital where Chloe's mother was staying and said horrible, cruel things to her. It was only then that her mother learned what Chloe had been going through. The shock caused her to have a relapse, and she was rushed into intensive care. Later, after she was stabilized, not wanting to be a burden on her daughter any longer, she secretly removed her own breathing tube in the middle of the night. The next morning, Chloe woke to find her mother's cold, lifeless body. In a way, Kyle Preston was the final straw that broke her. The poor girl. I couldn't let her suffer that fate again. That's why I was here tonight. Chloe shook her head. "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm focused on my work right now. I'm not interested in dating." Kyle pressed on. "I can give you money." Chloe replied coolly. "I haven't done anything to deserve it." Kyle frowned. "Is there something wrong with me? You keep turning me down. Are you seeing someone else?" Chloe was about to say no, but then an image of me flashed in her mind, and she hesitated. That single moment of hesitation was all Kyle needed. It ignited his fury. "I thought you were only focused on your work. Who is he?" Chloe replied coolly. "I don't see how that's any of your business." Kyle glared at her, his voice low and menacing. "Chloe, you're going to regret this." Chloe ignored his threat and turned to leave, but Kyle and his friends blocked her path. "Chloe, stop right there." One of Kyle's friends, trying to score points, stepped forward. "Chloe, do you still think you're some big shot? Our friend Kyle is interested in you. That's a compliment. You should learn to take it." Chloe turned to walk away, but she had only taken a few steps when she heard Kyle's voice behind her. "Chloe, you have a sick mother, don't you?" She spun around, her beautiful face now a mask of ice, her eyes glinting with a dangerous light. "What are you planning to do?" Kyle smiled. "I've been chasing you for so long, and you keep turning me down for some other guy. You're making me look like a fool. You can't expect to get away with that without paying a price." Chloe's voice was like ice. "Do whatever you want to me, but you will not touch my mother." Her eyes shone with a desperate, dangerous light. If he crossed that line, she would not hesitate to bring him down with her. Kyle was momentarily taken aback by her intensity. "Fine, I won't touch your mother, but if you want to keep her safe, you'll drink every bottle on this table, down to the last drop." The table was covered with dozens of bottles of hard liquor. In the original story, she drank it all, but Kyle didn't keep his promise. He went after her mother anyway. But with her mother's safety on the line, Chloe couldn't afford to take that chance. Her slender, pale hand reached for a bottle. Before she drank, she said coolly, "I'll drink. I just hope you're a man of your word." With that, She tilted her head back and downed the entire bottle. The crowd around them started to cheer. Incredible! Keep going. That's just the first one. After the first bottle, the room was already starting to spin. As she reached for the second, a hand closed around her wrist, stopping her. I leaned in and whispered in her ear, "Drinking without me?" Her eyes were glazed over as she murmured my name, "Ethan." I nodded. "Yes, it's me." Then, I gently kissed the lingering taste of liquor from her lips. She looked at me, shocked. "Why did you kiss me?" I smiled. "Because I like you." Then I tilted her chin up. "Do you like me?" Chloe heard her own voice, stripped of its usual coolness and now soft with intoxication, but her answer was firm. "Yes, I've liked you since the first time I saw you." After she said it, she leaned in and kissed me again. Seeing this, Kyle felt like he was losing his mind. This man had appeared out of nowhere, kissing and holding Chloe, and she, the same woman who had always been so cold to him, wasn't resisting at all. In fact, she was kissing him back, telling him she liked him. Kyle's face twisted in a furious snarl. "Who the hell are you?" he screamed. "You dare to steal my woman? You have a death wish." I steadied Chloe, then shot a sidelong glance at Kyle. "And who are you to be shouting at me? I think you're the one with the death wish." Kyle was a spoiled brat who was used to getting his way. This was the first time anyone had ever dared to speak to him like that. He lunged forward, but before he could land a punch, the men in black reappeared. One of them caught his wrist in a grip of steel. I said, my voice calm and even, "Break his arm." I said it with no more emotion than if I had been ordering a coffee. Kyle's eyes widened in terror. "You wouldn't dare. Do you know who I am?" I smiled. "I can assure you I dare." "Do it." My bodyguard acted immediately. A sharp crack echoed through the club, followed by Kyle's agonized scream. Everyone in the vicinity was frozen in shock. "Are you insane?" someone shouted. "That's Kyle Preston. The Preston family will destroy you for this." Kyle, who had never known a moment of real pain in his life, cradled his broken arm, his face pale and twisted. "You're dead," he hissed. "My family will not let you get away with this." I raised an eyebrow, a playful smile on my face. "Good, I'll be waiting." Just then, someone in the crowd recognized me and tried to warn him. "Kyle, shut up. That's Ethan Vance." At the mention of my name, Kyle's hysterical threats died in his throat. His face went rigid. Couldn't be. After learning who I was, even with a broken arm, Kyle didn't dare say another word, let alone think about getting revenge. I successfully escorted the intoxicated Chloe out of the velvet rope and back to the Inkwell estate. The next morning, Chloe woke up in a strange, luxurious bedroom. Just then, I walked in. Chloe spoke first. "Mr. Vance, did you bring me back from the club last night?" I nodded with a smile. "I did. You don't remember any of it, do you?" Chloe's eyelashes fluttered as she stammered. I was drunk." I looked at her. "Then let me refresh your memory. You said you didn't like anyone else, that you liked me the most. You wouldn't let me leave. We even slept in the same bed. Look what you did." With that, I pulled down the collar of my shirt, revealing a bright red bite mark on my collarbone. Chloe's face flushed with embarrassment. She looked away. I'm sorry." I smiled and gently turned her face back toward me. "You're cute when you blush. Don't go back to that club again, okay?" Chloe gave a bitter smile. She didn't want to go back there, but her mother's medical bills were piling up. Chloe bit her lip. "But," I cut her off. "Are you worried about your mother's medical bills? That's an easy fix. All you have to do is get back into acting. You'll make more than enough money, and your mother won't have to know what you've been going through." A flicker of something crossed Chloe's eyes. She shook her head. "I'm blacklisted by Starlight. I can't sign with another studio. The penalty for breaking my contract is astronomical." In reality, at the height of her fame, any number of studios would have been willing to pay the fee to sign her. But she had made an enemy of Amelia Davenport. Their cash cow had become a liability, and no one was willing to touch her. A smile played on my lips. "Who said anything about another studio? Stay at Starlight. Maybe the company will decide to promote you again." Hearing this, Chloe looked down. "That's impossible. The person who had me blacklisted was Amelia Davenport." Chloe knew a little of the story, though she still had no idea how she had gotten on Amelia's bad side. She had heard that Amelia was practically a Vance. Since Starlight was a Vance company, how could they possibly go against her wishes? I cut her off before she could finish. "Amelia is not a Vance. In fact, she's been cast out by the Davenports. She's no longer president of their company. She can barely take care of herself right now, let alone cause any more trouble for you." Chloe didn't ask how I knew this. She knew I wasn't just some ordinary person. She looked at me, her gaze steady. Do you really want me to go back to acting? I nodded. Of course. You're at your most brilliant when you're on stage. Then I kissed her again. A faint blush crept up her cheeks. If this is what you want, what you'd like to see, then what's stopping me from stepping back into the spotlight? Some people choose to step out of the darkness and back into the light, while others fall from grace and are left to struggle in the mud. Amelia learned from her mother that her grandfather had not only cut her off financially, but was also planning to formally disown her. This news sent her mother into a panic. Amelia, if you keep fighting with your grandfather, if you don't come home, there will be no place for us in this family. Amelia, please, come home and beg him for forgiveness. I'm begging you. Her mother's plea was desperate and sincere. Amelia was tired of this life of poverty and humiliation. It wasn't that she didn't want to go back. She just couldn't bear the thought of having to grovel before me. She knew her grandfather would force her to go to the Vance estate and beg for my forgiveness, and that was something she could not bring herself to do. When you've taken someone's affection for granted for so long, you start to believe they're not even worthy of loving you. With this in mind, she turned to Julian. Julian, my mother wants me to go back home and reclaim what's mine. But how can I leave you? Julian had his own agenda. In the past, he would have never wanted her to leave. He would have wanted her by his side every moment. But now, she was no longer the powerful heiress she once was. Her credit cards were frozen, her properties seized. Her words carried no weight. She couldn't even help him. A fallen heiress was not what he wanted. Realizing this, Julian quickly said, Amelia, you should go. I'll be fine. I love you, and I want what's best for you. As long as I know you're thinking of me, I'll be happy, even if you're not here. With Julian being so understanding, Amelia felt no guilt about returning to her family. Although Mr. Davenport Sr. claimed to be disappointed in her, she was still the woman Ethan had once loved. Seeing her return obediently, he was secretly pleased. If she could win Ethan back, his years of planning might not be a total loss. There might still be a chance. With this in mind, Mr. Davenport Sr. said with a stern face, Ethan is the son-in-law I have chosen for this family. You can only return to the Davenport name if you can win his forgiveness and convince him to marry you. Amelia was not surprised by her grandfather's conditions. She saw right through his noble words to the naked ambition beneath. He was after the Vance family's fortune. A confident, sarcastic smile touched Amelia's lips. She quickly lowered her head to hide it as her grandfather looked her way. She said confidently, I understand, grandfather. Ethan still has feelings for me. It won't be difficult to win him back. Hearing this, the look in her grandfather's eyes softened. He was about to make her a promise when a mocking voice cut in. It came from another woman sitting in the living room, one who bore a slight resemblance to Amelia but carried herself with a completely different air. Ethan Vance is a billionaire's heir. Having his bride run out on their wedding day was a massive public humiliation. I doubt a few sweet words will be enough to fix that. And even if you can win him over, what about his grandfather? Don't you agree, sir? Her grandfather considered this and realized she was right. The words of promise died on his lips. His expression grew cold and distant again. Go and win Ethan back first, he said coolly. Then we'll talk. He didn't even offer her the simplest incentive, like unfreezing her accounts if she succeeded. Amelia had seen her grandfather start to soften, but after just a few words from Jessica Reed, he had hardened again. She shot Jessica a look filled with hatred. Just you wait. Once I have Ethan back and grandfather is on my side again, I will destroy you. Amelia and her mother arrived at the Vance estate. Unlike before, when she had been reluctant to face me, now, with Jessica as a threat, Amelia was almost desperate to see me and win me back. But they were stopped at the door by a maid. I'm sorry, but the young master is still asleep. Please wait. Amelia's mother frowned. It's this late and he's still sleeping? Go and wake him up. She spoke as if she were already his mother-in-law. The maid, Lucy, stared at her as if she were crazy. The young master sleeps as long as he likes. Even Mr. Vance Sr. doesn't disturb him. I think you're overstepping your bounds, Mrs. Davenport. Hearing this, Amelia's mother remembered why they were there and managed to bite her tongue. After Lucy excused herself, worried that I might be taken advantage of, she secretly called my grandfather to let him know the Davenports had arrived. By the time my grandfather got back, I had woken up and come downstairs. I glanced at the mother and daughter and said dryly, We have guests. How lively. Amelia's eyes were immediately fixed on me. Was this Ethan? He seemed more handsome today. Her gaze held a heat that even she didn't seem to notice. Her mother saw the look in her daughter's eyes and felt a surge of hope. There was a chance. She had been worried her daughter would be too proud to humble herself before me. After all, Amelia had never treated me well in the past. It was I who had been foolishly infatuated with her. Now, seeing the way Amelia was looking at me, her mother was sure she would be compliant. She tried to sound friendly. "Ethan, don't say guests. We're all family here. You're my son-in-law after all." I ignored her, walked over to the sofa, greeted my grandfather, and then turned to the maid. "Lucy, get me a coffee." Amelia's mother looked embarrassed, her forced smile faltering. This Ethan was being so disrespectful. She was his future mother-in-law after all. He was acting like a spoiled child, just because he was the Vance heir. But for now, she would have to endure it. My grandfather, sitting on the sofa, glanced at the two of them, his voice heavy. "To what do we owe the pleasure of this visit?" His displeasure was palpable. He made no effort to hide his dislike for Amelia. Amelia's mother trembled under his intense gaze, but as the elder, she couldn't shrink back. She forced herself to speak. "Mr. Vance, about the wedding, our Amelia knows she was wrong. We came today to apologize to Ethan and beg for his forgiveness." My grandfather snorted. "An apology? You humiliated my grandson, and you think a simple apology is enough? You must be dreaming." I spoke calmly. "And how exactly does Miss Davenport plan to apologize?" Amelia clenched her fists, lowered her head, and forced the words out through gritted teeth. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I shouldn't have." Before she could finish, I let out a derisive laugh, as if she'd told a joke. "So that's your apology, Miss Davenport?" My face was a mask of nonchalance, tinged with open mockery. Hearing this, Amelia's mother knew things were going badly. She quickly jumped in to smooth things over. "Ethan, please don't be angry. Amelia is truly sorry. She's just not very good with words. Tell us what you want." She would move heaven and earth for you. She was making a bold promise. I smiled. "Mrs. Davenport, as a woman of your standing, surely you've heard of the concept of penance?" Her mother's face froze. Seeing her hesitation, I pressed on. "Didn't you just say she was here to sincerely apologize? It doesn't seem that way now. Were those just empty words?" Her mother's face was rigid. She forced an awkward laugh. "Of course not. You've misunderstood, Ethan. It's just, for penance, we don't exactly have a bed of nails lying around." I tilted my head, and my next words made Amelia look like she wanted to kill me. "Then let's simplify things. Forget the bed of nails. She can kneel and apologize." Her mother, protective of her daughter, instinctively shot back. "How could you ask for such a thing?" I glanced at her. "Am I, the heir to the Vance fortune, not worthy of such an apology?" My grandfather, who always indulged me, spoke up. "My grandson is worthy of anything. If you're not willing to do this, then you're clearly not sincere. Lucy, show them out." Amelia knew that if she left now, she would never be allowed back in this house. Gritting her teeth, she dropped to her knees before me. "Ethan, I was wrong. Please forgive me." She spoke through the humiliation, then looked up, her eyes burning with a crimson rage. "There. Are you satisfied?" I met her furious gaze with a small smile. Miss Davenport herself on her knees. "That is quite sincere." My grandfather frowned at my words but said nothing. Her mother, seeing an opening, immediately pressed her advantage. "Of course, Ethan. Amelia is truly sorry. So, about the wedding," I waved a dismissive hand. "It's off, of course." Her mother stared in shock. "What? Off?" The frown on my grandfather's face eased slightly. To be honest, he had been worried I might go soft on her. He knew how the old Ethan had felt about her. Thankfully, I hadn't lost my head. I hadn't disappointed him. My grandfather wasn't disappointed, but Amelia and her mother certainly were. Her mother said hurriedly, "No, Ethan, how can you do this? Amelia knelt and apologized to you. How can you just—" I cut her off. "Mrs. Davenport, on that day your daughter, the bride, ran out of her own wedding. While it didn't exactly make me the laughingstock of New York, it was a grave insult to my family's name. Don't you think a little kneeling is warranted?" Hearing this, her mother forced a stiff smile. "It is. It's just that you and Amelia have known each other for so long." I cut her off again. "Mrs. Davenport, whatever feelings there were, they died on that day." Her mother was left completely speechless. Amelia, still kneeling, looked up, her eyes dark with humiliation. "Ethan," she said, her voice cold, "you were the one who called it off first, trying to shift the blame to me? Not a chance." I set down my coffee cup, because right before the wedding, I discovered my fiancé was cheating on me with a boy toy. I think calling things off under those circumstances is pretty understandable, don't you? Hearing this, Amelia pressed on. Are you really so cruel? Are you just going to throw away all our years together? Ethan, I promise you, it will never happen again. Her words made me sick. It wouldn't happen again, because in the original timeline, after she got what she wanted, she had the original Ethan locked away in a mental hospital and married Julian. No chance to cheat then. Thinking of this, I just said, oh, she continued, Ethan, believe me, if you'll just take me back, I'll make you happy. I found that ironic. I smiled, slow and deliberate. But what's to be done, Amelia? I just don't think I believe you anymore. Amelia asked, Ethan, what will it take for you to trust me again? How about this? This time you can pursue me. If I want something to eat, you'll go get it no matter how far. You'll be at my beck and call 24/7. When I say jump, you'll ask how high. That kind of pursuit. Amelia listened, a vague sense of unease settling in. This was a pursuit? It sounded more like being my personal assistant. I tilted my chin up, my tone that of a spoiled heir. What, you're not willing? Amelia was trapped. Logically, my demands weren't entirely unreasonable. Our first wedding had been a public disaster. For a second attempt to work, one of us would have to be the one to give in. And given our respective situations, that person would have to be her. Even her grandfather would have forced her to agree. My motives seemed clear enough. I wanted her to pursue me, to show all of New York how devoted she was to me. But still, a sense of unease lingered. She felt that by agreeing, she was stepping into a trap. I met her gaze with a smile, thinking to myself with malicious glee, did she really think I was giving her a second chance? This was just an opportunity to torture her, to humiliate her, to crush her. In the end, with no other choice, Amelia nodded in agreement. Amelia's apology at the Vance estate was a partial success. Her grandfather was thrilled. He immediately unfroze her accounts and returned her cars and properties for her to use as she saw fit. Her grandfather said happily, Amelia, the fact that Ethan is giving you this chance means he still has feelings for you, but he's still a Vance. He can't just let this go without some show of remorse. Even if he wanted to, his grandfather wouldn't allow it. So this time you have to give it your all. Do you understand? Amelia nodded. I understand. And so, Amelia began her earnest pursuit of me. When I left work, Amelia was waiting for me outside the Starlight building. As soon as I stepped out of the building, she approached me. Ethan, I'm here to take you home. I glanced at the bouquet of roses in her arms with disdain. What are these? Seeing my displeased expression, Amelia frowned. They're roses. I replied bluntly, I'm not blind. I know they're roses. I'm asking why you're giving them to me. Are you trying to kill me? Amelia, who had gone out of her way to buy the flowers, was annoyed by my lack of appreciation but managed to hold her tongue. But my last question caught her off guard. She frowned. Ethan, what are you talking about? Why would I want to harm you? I shot her a look. You don't know I'm allergic to roses? You bring me a bouquet of roses, and you're not trying to kill me? The allergy was a lie, of course. Who would want flowers from a woman like her? I found the gesture tainted. Amelia genuinely didn't know. Ethan, you've misunderstood. I had no idea you were allergic. You don't even know I have allergies, and you have the nerve to talk about love and happiness? My eyes were filled with contempt for her. Amelia wanted to scream, but she knew she couldn't afford to anger me. She forced a smile. Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't know. From now on, I'll pay more attention. I'll put you first. Please don't be angry. If you don't like the roses, I'll throw them away. Just then, I stopped her. Wait, I may be allergic, but it would be a shame to waste them. Why don't you give them to Julian? A little recycling. The word recycling made the smile vanish from her face. Julian was the man she loved. For me to reject her flowers and tell her to give them to him, calling it recycling, was a naked insult. Amelia suppressed her rage. Ethan, that's in the past. I have no feelings for him now. You're the Vance heir. You don't need to stoop to his level. Besides, he's not even here. I sneered and gestured casually in a certain direction. Look again. Isn't that him right there? Amelia's heart sank. She looked where I was pointing and saw Julian standing near the entrance to the building. He had clearly heard every word she'd said, and his face was a mask of hurt and disbelief. She couldn't help but call out his name. Julian. She wanted to tell him it wasn't what it sounded like, that she was just lying to placate me. Even when she had been at her lowest, living with him, they had had their share of arguments. He had never openly fought with her, but she had grown tired of his constant complaining and had often wondered if it was all worth it. But after leaving him, distance had made the heart grow fonder, and she had convinced herself that he was the one she truly loved. Now, seeing him so hurt by her words, she wanted nothing more than to run to him and tell him it wasn't true. But she couldn't. She gave him a long, meaningful look, hoping he would understand. Heartbroken, Julian turned and walked away. I called out his name. "Julian." He turned back. "Mr. Vance? What do you want?" "Here," I said, gesturing to the flowers. "I'm allergic. It's a waste to throw them out. You take them." I looked at the roses in Amelia's hand with open disgust, as if they were a piece of trash I couldn't bear to look at. Julian felt the sting of humiliation. He gritted his teeth. "Mr. Vance, I don't like roses." Before he could finish, I let out a cold laugh. "Julian, I'm not offering you a gift. Someone gave me these flowers. I'm allergic, and you happen to be here. I'm asking you to dispose of them for me. Take them home, throw them in the trash, I don't care. Understand?" The implication was clear. I didn't care what he wanted. He was just a convenient garbage disposal. His face paled. Suppressing his anger, he took the flowers and walked away. Amelia silently gritted her teeth, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She would endure it. I thought to myself, let's see how long you can keep this up. I was in no hurry. Besides, the Vance and Davenport business empires had been intertwined for decades. Even if my grandfather wanted to dismantle them, it would take time. Giving Amelia a chance to win me back was just a smokescreen to keep her grandfather complacent. The Vance family was already slowly closing the net, waiting for the right moment to strike. And of course, we had an inside woman, Jessica Reed. Jessica was the illegitimate daughter of the Davenport patriarch. She hated the family, and her true goal was to bring the entire Davenport empire crashing down. When she secretly approached me to propose an alliance, she laid bare her painful past to prove her sincerity. It turned out her mother had been assaulted by Amelia's father and had become pregnant with Jessica as a result. Mr. Davenport Sr. had paid her mother off to keep her quiet, while Amelia's father, the perpetrator, had gone on with his life, not even bothering to remember her mother's name. Jessica grew up with the stigma of being an illegitimate child. Her mother died of depression when she was young, and she was raised by her grandparents. She worked hard, made a name for herself in the world of finance, and eventually caught the eye of Mr. Davenport Sr., who decided to officially acknowledge her. But his acknowledgement was not a negotiation. He offered her grandparents a sum of money to sever their ties with her and forced her to take the Davenport name. This was the final straw. From that moment on, she was determined to bring the Davenports down. On her own, fulfilling that wish would have taken her years. So she approached me, proposing an alliance with the Vances to bring down the Davenports from the inside out. Having an ally on the inside was the perfect opportunity. I had no reason to refuse. After our meeting, as Jessica was leaving my office at Starlight, she ran into Amelia on her way in. When Amelia saw Jessica coming out of my office, she glared at her with open hostility. "You, Jessica, what are you doing here?" Jessica just smiled coolly. "I'm here on behalf of the Davenport Corporation to discuss a business proposal with Mr. Vance. I don't believe I need to report the details to you." To Amelia, Jessica's words and her calm demeanor were nothing but a blatant display of superiority. It took all of Amelia's self-control not to slap her across the face. When she faced me, however, her temper flared. She demanded bluntly, "Ethan, what was Jessica doing here? Is there something going on between you two?" She might as well have asked if I was sleeping with her. I wasn't angry. I just scoffed. "Amelia, in what capacity are you questioning me? As my fiancée? My wife? I don't think so. Right now, you're just one of many women trying to get my attention. I'm being generous by even letting you hang around. You have no right to meddle in my affairs." Understood. The humiliation was total. The old Amelia, the one I used to spoil, would have stormed out and slammed the door. But now, perhaps she had grown accustomed to my cruelty. She just gritted her teeth and forced out the word, "Understood." I treated Amelia with the cold ruthlessness of an autumn wind, tormenting her whenever the mood struck. But with my sweet Chloe, it was a different story. I was warmer than a spring breeze. I assigned Chloe a new agent and gave a direct order: make her a star again. My subordinates, seeing which way the wind was blowing, immediately drew up a comprehensive plan to restore her reputation and relaunch her career. Chloe was a natural star, a stunning beauty with undeniable talent. Once the slander and false rumors were cleared away, it was easy for her to re-emerge with a fresh image and win back the hearts of the public. Through it all, Chloe remained surprisingly calm. After hitting rock bottom and spending so long in the dark, even a return to the spotlight couldn't elicit the same thrill it once had. From a blacklisted outcast to Starlight's leading lady, Chloe's status at the studio soared. Other actors at the studio now greeted her with a respectful Ms. Sterling, including Julian Croft. With no one backing him anymore, Julian was barely scraping by with bit parts and minor gigs. Chloe's return to the limelight felt like a return to the old days, when he was just a newcomer and she was the biggest star in the industry. Julian once again saw Chloe through the rose-tinted glasses of a fan, and his attentiveness toward Amelia began to wane. Working at the same studio, Julian tried to find ways to get closer to Chloe. When Chloe's new agent found out, she warned her to stay away. That Julian Croft secretly got involved with the former president of the Davenport Corporation, our Mr. Vance's ex-fiancée, and made a powerful enemy. Mr. Vance has blacklisted him, and anyone associated with him will go down too. Julian is probably just trying to use you for publicity, to ride your coattails. Chloe, you have to be careful. Don't let him get what he wants. You've been handpicked by the top brass for a comeback. I don't know why, but you've worked too hard to get here to let someone like him ruin it all. Do you understand? Actors didn't meet with the CEO unless it was for a special reason. Even Chloe had no idea that I was the new head of Starlight. When I gave the order to relaunch Chloe's career, everyone just assumed it was the whim of a spoiled heir, or perhaps that I had a keen eye for talent and couldn't bear to see it wasted. No one suspected there was a personal connection between us. Since we had never been seen together at the studio, there was no reason for anyone to suspect a thing. Chloe listened to her agent, a flicker of understanding in her crystalline eyes. The powerful figure who had blacklisted her was, in fact, Amelia Davenport, and Julian Croft, the man who kept trying to get close to her, had claimed to be her biggest fan. Was there a connection? She was sharp, and she sensed there was more to the story. If her suspicions were correct, the whole situation was absurd. The beautiful young woman pressed her rose-petal lips together. I understand. I'll stay away from Julian from now on. Her agent nodded, satisfied. She was about to say something else when Chloe added, I have a boyfriend. I can't have him getting the wrong idea. At the mention of her boyfriend, her eyes softened and brightened, and a small smile played on her lips. Her agent's jaw dropped. What? Her eyes went wide as she stared at the stunningly beautiful young woman, her voice rising in pitch. You have a boyfriend? The agent quickly covered her mouth, lowering her voice, though her excitement was still palpable. When did this happen? Who is he? Why haven't you ever mentioned this? Don't you know that celebrities in your position aren't supposed to date? Chloe ignored her agent's last question and answered the first two. It was recent, and he's a very handsome man. Her agent ran a hand through her hair in frustration. I can tell just by looking at you that you're head over heels. Chloe didn't deny it. Her agent continued, Chloe, do you have any idea what will happen if your fans find out you're in a relationship? Chloe nodded. I know. I'll lose everything I have now and go back to the way things were. Her agent looked at her with an expression of pure exasperation. You know, and you still. Chloe's eyes were bright and determined. I had nothing before. I was walking alone in a dark abyss. He reached out to me and became the light in my life. He's irreplaceable. Even if I fall back to rock bottom, as long as I have that light, I'll never be in the dark again. I would rather give up everything I have now than let go of his hand. Her agent fell silent. She was new to Chloe's team, but she knew the story of how a top star had been brought down by scandal and lies. She knew about the previous agents who had tried to exploit her, and the fans who had promised to stand by her forever, only to abandon her and join the chorus of haters. Even without having lived it, she could imagine the darkness and despair of that time. If a man had appeared then, cutting through the darkness and offering a ray of light, anyone in her position would have held on and never let go. It was light. It was salvation. The agent wasn't heartless. She didn't force the issue. Instead, she said quietly, then you have to protect him. Dating is hard enough in your position. If he's not in the industry, he could get hurt. The fans can be brutal. Chloe pressed her lips together and nodded. Her agent continued, Starlight is investing in you again because they see your market value. A boyfriend isn't the end of the world. I know the contract says no dating for 5 years, but nobody really follows that rule. Still, as your agent, you need to tell me who he is. I need to be prepared so I can handle any problems that might come up. Chloe knew she was right. She hadn't intended to keep it a secret, but her agent had never asked, and Chloe was naturally a private person. She wasn't about to announce it to the world. But now that she had asked, there was no reason to hide the truth. Her agent asked, is he in the industry or a civilian? Chloe replied, a civilian, but she silently added to herself, and he's more handsome than most of the actors in Hollywood. I know most of the people in the industry. A civilian, huh? What's his name? You should bring him by sometime so I can meet him. Chloe's expression immediately turned guarded, as if her agent were trying to steal something precious from her. Why? Her agent was both amused and exasperated. All right, relax. I'm not going to steal him from you. I just need to give him a heads up. He's not in the business, he doesn't know the rules. What if he starts telling people he's your boyfriend? If he says the wrong thing, I'm the one who has to clean up the mess. It's better to warn him beforehand. You make him sound like some kind of troublemaker. Chloe said defensively, Ethan isn't like that. I know you're protective of him, but her agent suddenly caught the name Chloe had used. What did you say? Ethan? Her agent thought of the new CEO of Starlight, the heir to the Vance fortune. Wasn't his name Ethan Vance? Couldn't be a coincidence, could it? But the order to blacklist Chloe had come from Amelia Davenport. Who else but the Vance heir would have the power to defy that order and bring her back? Her agent swallowed hard, shocked by her own suspicion. It seemed impossible, but she had to ask. Chloe, what's your boyfriend's full name? Ethan Vance. Chloe said softly. For the second time that day, her agent felt like she had been struck by lightning. Seeing her agent's expression, Chloe asked, What's wrong? Her agent's voice was filled with unrestrained excitement. You have the nerve to ask me what's wrong? You've been quietly dating the heir to the Vance fortune. Her agent was beaming. Even if she only dated him for a short time, as long as things ended amicably, Chloe's career in Hollywood would be secure for life. The studio must have thought highly of her to assign her to Chloe's team. She never imagined she'd stumble into such a golden opportunity. But Chloe frowned, catching the unfamiliar term. Heir? What heir? Chloe had never asked about my background, and my family had always been very protective of my privacy. The world knew the Vances of New York had an heir, but no one knew his name or what he looked like. There wasn't a single photo of me on the entire internet, not even on Wikipedia. The disastrous wedding was supposed to be my first public appearance. The press had been invited and everything. But after Amelia ran out, my family's reputation was on the line. My grandfather, protective of me, forbade the media from publishing a single detail about me, not wanting me to become a topic of public gossip. The Vances' influence in New York was immense. No media outlet would dare defy them and risk being shut down. As a result, my identity remained a secret, known only to a select few in New York's high society. Later, when I took over as CEO of Starlight, I became a more public figure, but only the top executives at the company knew who I really was. The actors only knew that a new CEO named Vance had been appointed from corporate. As a newly reinstated actress, Chloe hadn't yet been privy to that kind of high-level information. Besides, Chloe wasn't the curious type. She was naturally private, so it wasn't surprising that she didn't know the CEO's full name. Her agent gave her a strange look. Wait, you really don't know who Ethan Vance is, do you? Chloe pressed her lips together. I only know that he's my boyfriend. Her agent swore internally. It seemed her client genuinely had no idea her boyfriend was the Vance heir. She never would have guessed the heir had such unique tastes. Was this some kind of role-playing game for him? Pretending to be a normal guy to date a celebrity? Her agent's eye twitched. She decided to enlighten her client. Ethan Vance, heir to the New York Vance fortune, grandson of the billionaire Harrison Vance, and the new CEO of Starlight Entertainment. Chloe, do you understand who he is now? Do you realize you've hit the jackpot? With him in your corner, you'll be the biggest star in Hollywood. Chloe's expression remained calm, but inside, a storm was brewing. So Ethan was the Vance heir? Did that mean her blacklisting had been lifted, that Starlight was promoting her again, all because of him? Chloe pressed her lips together tightly. A single thought consumed her. I have to see him, right now. The CEO's office was on the 33rd floor, a restricted area for most actors, even a star of Chloe's caliber. But Chloe insisted, so her agent had no choice but to take her up. As they stepped into the elevator, they found Amelia Davenport already inside, also on her way to the 33rd floor. Chloe's mind was completely preoccupied. She didn't even spare Amelia a glance. Amelia, however, recognized Chloe. She had always been jealous of Chloe, because Julian had been such a huge fan. The two of them had never even met in person. You? Amelia sized her up, and even through her critical, prideful gaze, she had to admit that the young woman was stunning, with the unmistakable aura of a star. Amelia frowned. Didn't I have her blacklisted? How is it that she still looks like a star, completely untouched by it all? Chloe's mind was racing. She didn't even register Amelia's comment. Being ignored by Chloe, Amelia's anger flared. How dare she ignore her? It was the agent who stepped in to break the tension. Miss Davenport, what a pleasure. Do you know our Chloe? Amelia, still fuming, sneered. Just some actress. Who would want to know her? Just you wait. I'll have her blacklisted again by the end of the day. The agent forced an awkward smile, but inwardly, she scoffed. What's she got to be so arrogant about? What's she so proud of? The man you're desperately trying to win back is my client's boyfriend. Ha! The exchange between her agent and Amelia finally brought Chloe back to the present. Hearing her agent call the woman Miss Davenport, she realized this must be Ethan's ex-fiancée. Chloe's gaze shifted, and she sized Amelia up. After concluding that she was both prettier and had a better figure, she felt a sense of relief. When they reached the 33rd floor, Amelia strode out of the elevator first, with Chloe and her agent following calmly behind. Her agent lowered her voice. Don't worry. Even if she and Ethan get married someday, he was still your boyfriend once. He won't let her hurt you again. Hearing this, Chloe frowned. Married? Why would they get married? Are you kidding? The Davenports and the Fiancées are two of the most powerful families in New York. They grew up together. Of course they're going to get married. Her agent glanced at her. You don't actually think you're going to marry the heir, do you? Chloe said nothing. Her agent patted her shoulder and said, her voice full of sincere advice, Chloe, be realistic. You and he are from different worlds. Dating is one thing, but marriage is another. People like him marry people from their own circle. I hear Miss Davenport is trying to win him back. They've known each other their whole lives. They could get back together any day. You should just enjoy this for what it is and not get too serious. Chloe, who had been silent until now, slowly lifted her head, her crystalline eyes dark with an unfamiliar intensity as she looked at her agent. And what if I insist? As she spoke, a hint of obsession flickered in her eyes. The cool, composed woman was finally showing a possessive streak. Her agent's eyes widened in alarm. Chloe, what are you planning to do? Don't do anything rash. Leaving her agent's frantic cries behind, she strode to the door of the CEO's office and pushed it open. Amelia, who had been speaking to me, turned as the door opened. Seeing Chloe, she frowned in annoyance. What are you doing in here? Don't you know how to knock? This is not a place for actors. Amelia spoke as if she owned the place, ordering Chloe to leave. When I saw Chloe suddenly appear on the 33rd floor, a flicker of surprise crossed my face, but I quickly suppressed it. I knew she must have found out who I really was. I had never tried to hide it, so I had nothing to feel guilty about. Amelia spoke, but I remained silent, wanting to see how Chloe would react. Chloe replied to Amelia, her voice cool and even. If this isn't a place for an actor, is it a place for you to come and go as you please, Miss Davenport? She looked directly at Amelia, her gaze cool and detached, but the words that followed were a clear and deliberate challenge. As I understand it, you no longer hold a position at your family's company, so you can't be here on business. As for personal matters, your engagement to Mr. Vance was terminated long ago, because you were cheating on him with another actor. So I see no reason for you to be here, shamelessly harassing him. Don't you agree, Miss Davenport? Chloe's words were delivered in a calm, measured tone, but each one was a precision strike, hitting Amelia exactly where it hurt most. I rested my chin in my hand, watching with amusement. This sharp, confrontational side of her was a far cry from her usual cool composure. I was enjoying the show too much to intervene. Amelia's face contorted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She glared at Chloe, her eyes spitting venom. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to interfere in my business with Ethan? What gives you the right? Hearing this, Chloe didn't back down. Instead, she walked over to me and, as Amelia watched in stunned silence, leaned down and kissed me on the lips. Straightening up, she shot a sidelong glance at Amelia, her voice soft but firm. As it happens, I'm Ethan's girlfriend, so I believe your questions are better directed at yourself. Amelia's eyes widened in disbelief. She felt like she was going to lose her mind. Ethan, he was cheating on her, right in front of her face. Burning with the shame of betrayal, Amelia turned to me, her eyes filled with a murderous rage. She demanded, her voice shaking with fury, Ethan, don't you think you owe me an explanation? I found this amusing. And what exactly would you like me to explain, Miss Davenport? Stop playing dumb. Amelia pointed a trembling finger at Chloe. What is going on with her? Without a hint of guilt, I smiled and pulled Chloe onto my lap, wrapping an arm around her like a king with his queen. As you can see, I said, she's my girlfriend. I turned and planted a soft kiss on Chloe's cheek, then looked back at Amelia with a raised eyebrow. Any other questions, Miss Davenport? Amelia's face was a mask of pure rage. Ethan, if she's your girlfriend, then what am I? Your fiancé. You're nothing. And allow me to remind you, Miss Davenport, you are not my fiancé anymore. I shot her a contemptuous look. So, since we're both single, I'm just dating. Don't act like I'm the one who cheated on you. Amelia's face darkened. So you were just playing with me? I had let her pursue me, and she had thought it was because I still had feelings for her, that I was giving her a real chance. She had spent all this time enduring my moods, doing everything I asked. And all the while I had been with this actress, just leading her on. Ethan, you bastard. You scumbag. You've been playing me this whole time. She looked at me as if she wanted to tear me limb from limb. I met her gaze, enjoying the chaos, and asked, "You're only just now figuring that out? How slow?" After that final humiliation, it was no surprise that she couldn't stay a moment longer. Amelia stormed out, slamming the door behind her. In the CEO's office on the 33rd floor, Chloe and I were finally alone. The chair wasn't exactly built for two. Chloe had acted on impulse, putting on that display for Amelia's benefit. Now, in the cold, formal atmosphere of the office, it was just the two of us. Sitting so close to me, she suddenly seemed uncomfortable. She started to get up, flustered, but I gently pulled her back down onto my lap. I smiled. "Are you angry with me, Angel?" She whispered, "No," and as she instinctively turned her head, her lips brushed against mine. Chloe froze, clearly not expecting that to happen. She held her breath, completely still. With my lips still touching hers, I smiled. "Angel, what a wonderful accident, right? Don't be angry." Chloe looked away. "No, I've never been angry with you. I couldn't be." "Really?" I gently took her face in my hands and turned it toward me, making her meet my eyes. "You're really not angry that I didn't tell you who I was?" "I'm not angry," she answered in a low, firm voice. "I never asked." She looked me straight in the eye and said softly, "So you weren't hiding anything?" A wave of pleasure washed over me. Even if she had been angry, I could have easily won her back, but that would have been far less interesting. This mutual understanding was much more satisfying. I gave her a soft kiss. "You're so good, Angel." Chloe resisted the urge to kiss me back, her mind clearly on something else. "That woman, Amelia, are we going to be okay?" Everyone said the Fiancés and the Davenports were a perfect match, that Ethan and Amelia were childhood sweethearts destined to be married. The look on Amelia's face when she left, "She's not going to let this go." Chloe didn't come from money. She didn't understand the feuds of the rich and powerful. But she was worried about me. "Don't worry, Angel. I knew what I was doing. I'm not afraid of Amelia or her family." To ease her worries, I explained a few things. In New York, in terms of power and wealth, the Davenports are nothing compared to the Fiancés. They owe much of their success to us. Taking them down might have been complicated, but now, there's someone inside their company, someone her grandfather would never suspect, who wants to see them fall even more than I do. With her help, it will be effortless. After I finished, Chloe pressed her lips together. "Good." She was relieved. I asked slowly, "Don't you hate Amelia? You know she's the one who did all those things to you, right?" "Hate? Not really." Love and hate were precious emotions, and she wouldn't waste them on someone as insignificant as Amelia. She was, however, curious about one thing. "Why did she target me?" I answered, enunciating each word. "Because of Julian Croft." Julian Croft? If her agent hadn't mentioned his name earlier, she wouldn't have even known who he was. And even then, it was just a name. Chloe said, "I don't know him." When she was a top star, she wouldn't have noticed a small-time actor like Julian. Later, after she was blacklisted and he became famous, she wasn't paying attention to the comings and goings of the industry. She had no idea why she had been targeted by Amelia over a man she didn't even know. I cleared it up for her. "Julian is a fan of yours." At first, she didn't understand the connection. What did Amelia targeting her have to do with Julian being her fan? Then she remembered that Amelia and Julian were lovers, and she was left speechless. Is there something wrong with that woman? It was the first time the cool, reserved beauty had said something so blunt, but she had hit the nail on the head. There was definitely something wrong with Amelia. I laughed in agreement. There's definitely something wrong with her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have gotten jealous over her boyfriend's celebrity crush and had you blacklisted. But then again, it's your beautiful face that causes all this trouble, Angel. Chloe pouted, a rare childish expression on her usually composed face. Is that my fault? Seeing her pout, I quickly soothed her. No, of course not. My Angel is too beautiful for her own good. If anyone's to blame, it's Julian for his obsession and that crazy woman Amelia. At the mention of Amelia's name, a familiar thorn pricked at Chloe's heart. Ethan, do you love her? Her long lashes cast shadows on her cheeks. After asking the question, she couldn't bring herself to look at me. I gently lifted her face to meet my gaze. Are you jealous, Angel? I knew she was usually cool and reserved, so I expected her to be silent. I wasn't expecting a confession, but then I heard her whisper, yes, I'm jealous that she was your fiancée. I know I shouldn't be. I came into your life too late, and that's no one's fault. But I'm still jealous. It was the first time she had been so open about her feelings with me. I liked it. I was falling for her more and more. I kissed her forehead. You don't need to be jealous, Angel. You're mine now and I'm yours. As for Amelia, just consider her a mistake from my past, when I was young and naive. I was talking about the original Ethan, so I felt no guilt. From my perspective, letting himself be destroyed for a woman like Amelia was just plain stupid. But Chloe didn't know I wasn't talking about myself. Don't say that about yourself, Chloe said. She was the one who was wrong. I'll be good to you. I won't be like her. I smiled. Then I'll be looking forward to it. A short time later, the Davenport Corporation collapsed, declaring bankruptcy with shocking speed. Mr. Davenport Sr. had spent his entire life building his company, trying to elevate his family's name. He had schemed for years, even grooming his granddaughter from a young age to win the affection of the Vance heir. And in the end, his empire was destroyed, brought down by his own two granddaughters, one directly and one indirectly. The shock was too much for him. He fell ill and never recovered. With the family business gone and its patriarch incapacitated, the once great Davenport family vanished from the landscape of New York's elite. With the family gone, Amelia was no longer an heiress. All of her assets were seized and auctioned off by the banks. This time, she truly had nothing. With nowhere else to go, Amelia thought of her true love, Julian, and knocked on the door of his small, run-down apartment. Julian opened the door, and his face fell. It wasn't just Amelia, her mother was with her. Amelia's blouse was wrinkled, as if she'd been sleeping in it for days. Her eyes were bloodshot. She looked exactly like what she was, a fallen heiress. Her eyes, shadowed by her dark hair, were filled with a deep sadness as she looked at him. Julian, you've heard what happened to my family, haven't you? Julian pressed his lips together and nodded slowly. Amelia, don't be sad. I know you'll get through this. Amelia gave a bitter smile. Julian, she said slowly, my mother and I, we have nowhere to go. Can we stay with you for a while? For someone as proud as Amelia, saying those words, especially in front of the man she loved, was like breaking her own spirit, piece by painful piece. A flicker of hesitation crossed Julian's face. Taking in Amelia was one thing, but her mother? A notoriously difficult high society woman? He wanted to say no, but Amelia was still the love of his life, at least for the moment. Looking at her, he couldn't bring himself to refuse. He let them in. The moment her mother stepped inside, she began to criticize the apartment with open disgust. How can people live in a place like this? Our powder room is bigger than this entire apartment, and the floors are filthy. It looks like a garbage dump. Julian's face darkened. Was she implying he lived in a toilet? Her mother clearly hadn't adjusted to her new circumstances. She still acted like the lady of the manor, ordering Julian around, making him clean the entire apartment from top to bottom. Then, complaining that the guest room was too small, she demanded he give her the master bedroom. Exhausted and with an aching back, Julian lay on the small bed in the guest room, feeling utterly miserable. While her mother was ordering him around, Amelia hadn't said a word. It was only now that she came to him, hugging and kissing him, saying, Julian, you've worked so hard. That's just how my mother is. Please don't mind her. Just try to be patient. Neither Amelia nor her mother seemed to have any awareness that they were imposing. In their minds, Julian was going to marry Amelia, which would make her mother his mother-in-law. And a son-in-law was expected to be patient with his mother-in-law. As she ordered him around, her mother thought to herself, if our family hadn't gone bankrupt, if I had anywhere else to go, I would never accept this man as my son-in-law. Asterisk, it's his good fortune to be with my daughter. What's wrong with me giving him a few orders? Asterisk, while Amelia and her mother saw this as perfectly normal, Julian was filled with a growing resentment. Who said he wanted to marry Amelia? Her family was bankrupt. He was young, handsome, and a rising star. He didn't have to tie his future to her. Amelia, proud and ambitious, was determined to restore her family's fortune. She convinced Julian to invest his life savings in a business venture, which promptly failed, losing everything he had. Not only did she have no intention of repaying him, she even asked for more, promising that this time, she would succeed. When it came to money, Julian's romantic illusions shattered. There was no way he was going to give her the last of his savings for another gamble. He tried to reason with her, even though he knew she wouldn't like it. Amelia, the Fiancés are determined to keep you down. They'll never let you succeed. Maybe you should just try to find a regular job. After a huge fight with Julian, Amelia seemed to give up on her dreams of rebuilding her family's empire and started looking for work. With her Ivy League finance degree, finding a good job in New York should have been easy. The Fiancés wouldn't go so far as to prevent her from getting any job at all. That would just create a scandal. But while her resume was impressive, she was only applying for CEO positions. What company was hiring a CEO through a public job posting? It was a joke. Predictably, she never heard back. The thought of starting at the bottom as a junior employee was unbearable to her. Her pride wouldn't allow her to work for someone else. And so, she remained unemployed, completely dependent on Julian. Julian was no longer a rising star. His career had stalled and he was back to taking bit parts, his income a fraction of what it once was. Amelia and her mother, especially her mother, were used to a life of luxury and made no effort to curb their spending. Her mother, still considering herself Julian's future mother-in-law, felt entitled to his money. If their family hadn't gone bankrupt, a man like him would never have even been allowed through their front door. The fact that he now had the privilege of supporting her was an honor he should be grateful for. With this sense of superiority, her mother looked down on Julian while simultaneously demanding money from him for endless shopping sprees. While not the life she was used to, it was still a life of luxury he couldn't afford. Julian had no choice but to grit his teeth and take whatever acting work he could find. Unable to land any decent roles, he found himself typecast as the villain. Over time, he became known for it. In stark contrast to Julian's struggling career, Chloe's was flourishing. In just one short year, she had reclaimed her spot at the top, becoming more famous and beloved than ever before. He had seen her once from a distance at the Starlight headquarters. She seemed even more beautiful than he remembered, her presence more poised and elegant. One look was enough to make him feel completely unworthy. He had thought about approaching her, not with any ulterior motives, but simply as a fan wanting to get closer to his idol. But her agent was always hostile toward him, keeping a close watch, and he was never able to get near her. There was a time when he had been so close, and now, even speaking a single word to her felt like an impossible dream. All he could do was watch her on television, buy her posters, and listen to her albums. With Amelia and her mother living in his apartment, his fanboy activities did not go unnoticed. Even back when she was the powerful president of her family's company, Amelia had been jealous of his admiration for Chloe, even though it was just a fan's crush. Now, stripped of her status and wealth, seeing him bring home posters and albums of another woman was a sharp sting to her fragile pride. Julian, what is this? You're in love with her, aren't you? Just because my family is bankrupt and I have nothing, you're just going to leave me for someone else. Before, when she was jealous, she could have ruined Chloe's career with a single phone call. Now all she could do was scream, Julian, I'm telling you, it's useless. You think she made a comeback on her own? After I had her blacklisted? It's because she's sleeping with Ethan, my former fiancé. She now hated me with a passion, spitting out my name as if it were a curse. Julian was stunned into silence. If Chloe was the untouchable ideal in his heart, then I was, without a doubt, the man he despised most in the world. When he was Amelia's secret lover, I was her fiancé, forcing him into the shadows. And then I had single-handedly destroyed his career. So, to hear that the man he hated most was now involved with the woman he idolized, his perfect goddess, it was too much. He snapped. Impossible. You're lying. He shook his head, a hysterical edge to his voice. By now, Amelia and Julian were sick of the sight of each other. Seeing him like this didn't surprise her. After a moment of shock at his outburst, she sneered. Lying? I saw it with my own eyes. Your precious idol is all over him, fawning like a lovesick puppy. Julian's world was collapsing around him. He slapped Amelia across the face, screamed at her to get out, and then ran out of the apartment himself, his face buried in his hands. Once outside, he realized he had nowhere to go. He ended up in a bar, ordering the strongest drink on the menu and trying to drown his sorrows. The next morning, he woke up with a pounding hangover in a strange woman's bed. He felt like he'd been struck by lightning. The woman was in her 40s. She recognized him and cooed, I've had my eye on you for a long time. Don't worry, I'll take good care of you. Despite his fading fame, as a boy toy, Julian was still prime material, young, handsome, and fresh. The man I had watching them reported back to me with the whole story. The fight over Chloe, Julian storming out to a bar, and him being picked up by a wealthy, middle-aged woman who took him home. I later heard that he became the woman's secret lover for a while, all while still being entangled with Amelia. The woman treated him well enough. In exchange for his company, she gave him a generous allowance and even used her connections to get him a few roles. For a while, it seemed like his career was back on track. He was no longer stuck playing villains, and his popularity began to rise again. But the good times didn't last. His benefactor was married. Her husband found out, and without a second thought, he had Julian beaten senseless. Julian's budding comeback came to a screeching halt. The other man in an affair is never a sympathetic character. Amelia, of course, could not forgive his betrayal. She slapped him, her eyes bloodshot with rage, and screamed, "Julian, I gave up Ethan Vance for you, and this is how you repay me? You cheat on me with some old hag? Are you disgusting? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be in this mess. If it weren't for you, I would be Mrs. Ethan Vance right now. The entire Vance fortune would have been mine. You deserve to die, Julian." At this point, Julian had little shame left. He was sick of Amelia and her constant demands for money. He shot back, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "For you, Amelia? You did it for yourself. You were the one who couldn't stand being second fiddle to Ethan Vance. You couldn't stand the thought of having to please him, but you couldn't defy your grandfather, so you used me. I was just your excuse, your true love, to justify your rebellion. And don't you dare blame me for your family's downfall. Your grandfather got greedy. He tried to use you to take over the Vance fortune, and they crushed him for it. Even without me, your family's dirty dealings would have caught up with them eventually. Shut up, shut up, shut up." Amelia lunged at him, her hands closing around his throat, her eyes wild with a crazed fury. Choking, his face turning purple, Julian's hand fumbled for something, anything, and he swung it with all his might, hitting her hard in the side of the head. A stream of dark red blood trickled down from her temple. Julian Croft, former B-list actor, was arrested for assault. Amelia Davenport, fallen heiress, was left in a coma. To save himself from being strangled, he had grabbed an ashtray and hit her over the head. Her mother, returning from a shopping trip, found her daughter lying unconscious in a pool of blood and immediately called the police. Julian was arrested on charges of assault with a deadly weapon. Amelia remained in a coma. Because he was already in the tabloids for the affair, the story blew up. Otherwise, a washed-up actor like him would never have made headlines again. After the fall of the Davenport Corporation, Jessica had changed her last name back to Reed. She was a business prodigy in her own right, and she had started her own successful company, which now did business with the Vance Corporation. I hadn't been paying much attention to them anymore. I heard the news from Jessica. I slowly swiveled in my chair and smiled. "Well then, congratulations on your revenge, Ms. Reed." After the bankruptcy, Mr. Davenport Sr.'s health had declined rapidly, and he passed away not long after. Amelia was still in a coma, and it was likely she would remain in a vegetative state for the rest of her life. Jessica hated the Davenports. I'm sure she was pleased with this outcome. Jessica smiled. "The feeling is mutual. The Davenports have been plotting against your family for over a decade. Amelia cheated on you while waving the banner of true love. Seeing them turn on each other like this, I imagine you must be quite satisfied, Mr. Vance." I smiled, stood, and shook her hand. "Indeed, the feeling is mutual." Just then, the door opened, and Chloe walked in. She saw me shaking hands with Jessica, and though she said nothing, her lips tightened, and a shadow crossed her eyes. I calmly withdrew my hand. It was just a business formality. Seeing Chloe, Jessica quickly took her leave. "You have a guest, Mr. Vance. I'll see myself out." And with that, she was gone. I sat behind my desk and beckoned to Chloe. "Come here, Angel." Even though she knew it was just a handshake, seeing another woman's hand in mine still bothered her. Hearing my voice, she pressed her lips together and came over to the desk. I pulled her onto my lap, gently tilting her chin up to study her expression. I smiled. "What's wrong? You don't seem happy, Angel." Chloe asked. "Who was that?" "A business partner," I explained. "Jessica and I had worked together to bring down the Davenports. Our partnership had been quite successful, but it seemed my sweet Angel wasn't very happy about it." I tilted her chin up and gave her a soft kiss. "All right, if you don't like her, I won't do business with her anymore. I was just that fickle. The people I cared about I would spoil endlessly. If she wanted the stars, I would pluck them from the sky for her. As for everyone else, they might as well not exist." Chloe cleared her throat, the tips of her ears turning red. "I'm not really unhappy," she said softly. "Really?" I looked at her, a smile playing on my lips. She cleared her throat again. "A little." After a long pause, she asked hesitantly, You don't think I'm being unreasonable, do you? No, I said, my voice firm. With me, Angel, you have every right to be unreasonable. She suddenly looked up, her crystalline eyes shining with a brilliant light. Realizing her reaction had been a bit too eager, a faint blush colored her cheeks. She looked away shyly. My concert is in a few weeks, she said softly. Will you come? I smiled. Of course. The concert was being held at Madison Square Garden, with a capacity of over 20,000. Chloe had the organizers save me the best seat in the house. That night, I picked up a light stick at the entrance, held up a sign that read, Marry me, Chloe, and took my seat in the front row. The air was filled with the screams of fans, the roar of the crowd, and the thumping bass of the music. And there she was, on stage, bathed in a brilliant light. I smiled. With me, she was always sweet and shy. This was the first time I had seen her on stage, so confident and cool. The energy in the arena was electric, the music so loud it felt like it could tear the roof off the place. As the 2-hour show drew to a close, the high-energy music faded, replaced by the soft, gentle notes of a piano. She sat down at the grand piano, every movement graceful and elegant. She began to play Fur Elise. The entire stadium fell silent, every eye fixed on the young woman at the piano. She was the center of the universe. Along with thousands of fans, I listened to the final piece of the concert. When the final note faded, the crowd remained captivated. The fans erupted in cheers, waving their signs and light sticks, chanting her name. Chloe raised a single finger to her lips. Shoo! Within seconds, the entire arena was silent. She rose from the piano, and her clear voice, amplified by the microphone on her collar, filled the stadium. Thank you all for coming tonight. I once fell into a very dark place. I was all alone, and I couldn't see any light. I never thought I would stand on a stage like this again, under these lights. With that, she bowed deeply to each side of the stadium, her movements solemn and sincere. The already emotional fans, seeing this, covered their mouths, tears streaming down their faces. They had once believed the lies, had abandoned her, had helped to extinguish her star. From now on, they vowed they would not be Fairweather fans. Someone started a chant, and soon, the entire stadium was shouting in unison, through the good times and the bad, we'll be there. After a long moment, when the roar of the crowd had subsided, Chloe spoke again, her voice soft. There's one person I want to thank more than anyone. He was the one who gave me light when I was in the dark, who made it so I wasn't alone anymore. He wanted to see me shine, to see me standing in the spotlight, and that's what gave me the courage to come back to this stage. My expression flickered. Was she? The next second, a single spotlight cut through the darkness, landing directly on me. As the light hit me, the cameras all turned in my direction, and my face appeared on the giant screens all around the arena. A murmur went through the crowd. Who is that? He's so handsome. Could that be the person she was talking about? She stood on the stage, her gaze finding mine across the sea of people and the dazzling lights. Her voice, clear and gentle, carried through the arena. Ethan, you are the person I am most grateful for in this life, the person I love most, the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. I've been trying to think of the perfect way to propose, something grand enough to be worthy of you. And I decided to do it tonight because this moment of triumph, I want to share it with you. For any other celebrity, announcing a relationship, let alone a proposal, at their own concert would have been met with outrage from their fans. But Chloe was different. She had been planning this for a long time. I knew when I started my comeback that my fans might not accept this, that I might lose them all. But if you feel the same way I do, will you come to me? She walked to the edge of the stage and paused, a soft smile on her lips. If this is too sudden, if you can't answer me right now, that's okay. I've already decided that you're the one for me. I'll ask you 100 times if I have to. As long as you say yes once, that will be enough for a lifetime. The sudden proposal caught the fans completely by surprise. But as the fans who had abandoned her at her lowest point, who had left her to fend for herself in the darkness, they had no right to object to the person who had saved her. And so, the fans began to chant, "Say yes! Say yes!" A top celebrity proposing to her boyfriend at her own concert, with the fans cheering her on. It was a first for Hollywood. A smile touched my lips. Under the gaze of thousands, I slowly rose to my feet. Seeing me move, a brilliant light shone in Chloe's nervous eyes. The crowd parted, creating a path for me to the stage. Amidst the cheers and well wishes, I finally reached her side. I held out my hand to her. Off stage, her agent was practically vibrating with excitement, shouting orders at the crew. Yes, Operation Proposal is a success. Lighting, give me more on them. More brilliant. Props, where are the rose petals? Cue the petals. Seeing her client get her happy ending, her dream come true, the agent couldn't help but tear up. And so, the comeback concert she had been planning for nearly a year came to a close. Backstage, Chloe pulled me by the hand, leading me through the corridors to her dressing room. The moment the door closed, she took my face in her hands and kissed me, a desperate, passionate kiss. I met her rare, fiery passion with my own. The next day, the entertainment news was dominated by one story: Chloe Sterling's successful proposal to her mysterious boyfriend at her concert. And it didn't take long for the internet sleuths to uncover the identity of her fiancé. Although my grandfather had kept me out of the public eye for years, my recent appointment as CEO of Starlight had made me a more public figure. It wasn't hard for a determined person to connect the dots. The internet exploded with speculation, and every major news outlet covered the story. For a time, the story of the Vance heir and the Hollywood starlet was the talk of the town, dominating both the business and entertainment headlines. Amelia finally woke from her coma, her life no longer in danger. Julian, who had been in custody, was released. The charges dropped on grounds of self-defense. The moment he stepped out of the precinct, he overheard a group of teenagers talking on the street. "Did you guys see Chloe's concert last night?" "Yeah. She proposed to her boyfriend. I heard she planned it for months. It was so romantic. I mean, I don't want her to have a boyfriend, but she's finally found someone she likes. As long as she's happy, we should support her. Besides, the Vance heir is totally worthy of her." "Worthy? I'm worried she's not worthy of him. The Vances are on another level. I don't know if they'll ever let her marry into the family." Julian, his hair a mess, his face pale, stumbled forward and grabbed one of the boys. "What are you talking about?" he demanded, his voice frantic. "Chloe? The Vance heir? What about Chloe?" One of the boys, frightened by his intensity, pulled his arm away. "Are you living under a rock, dude?" he said, annoyed. "Who else would we be talking about? Chloe Sterling, of course. Chloe, the Vance heir." So Amelia had been telling the truth. Julian looked utterly devastated. The teenagers exchanged uneasy glances, muttered, "Psycho," and quickly walked away, leaving Julian alone on the sidewalk, muttering to himself, "Why? Why does this keep happening? Why does he get everything? Even Chloe." Amelia was awake, but something was wrong with her mind. She didn't remember Julian, or her family's bankruptcy, or the blow to her head. Her mind was a jumble of confused memories. She believed that she and I were childhood sweethearts, that she had loved me her whole life, and that we were going to be married. When she saw the news reports about me and Chloe, she became hysterical, screaming at the television, "No, Ethan is mine. He can't marry anyone else. Ethan, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been with that bastard Julian. I was wrong. It's you I love. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Ethan, please forgive me." In the end, Amelia was committed to a psychiatric hospital, meeting the same fate as the original Ethan. It was a fitting end, a perfect kind of justice. At the Vance estate, Chloe and I went to see my grandfather. She was more nervous than she had been on her first night on stage. Soon, my grandfather appeared. He was not pleased that I had kept my relationship a secret from him, that he had been the last to know. But after meeting Chloe in person, his disapproval melted away. She may not have had Amelia's pedigree, but she had something Amelia never did: a genuine love and affection for his grandson. The Vances were already the most powerful family in New York. They didn't need a strategic marriage alliance. He only had one grandson. All he had ever wanted was for that grandson to be happy.